and welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a really beautiful, delicious, creamy cauliflower cheese bacon soup. There's a lot of things going on in it. It's super delicious and really hearty, absolutely fantastic. I'd also like to remind everyone we have an affiliate link. It'll be in the description below to get 15% off a meat thermometer for your kitchen with if you use code LOVEYOURFOOD at checkout. And let's get going with our beautiful soup here, and here's our ingredients. So we've got some cauliflower. We're actually using Asian cauliflower for this. Some bacon. We're using that beautiful in-house smoked bacon, hot smoked bacon. Some chicken stock. Some cream. An onion. Some shallot. Some carrot. Some celery. Some leek. Some cheese. We're using, and some butter and some flour as well. And that's for sort of a rudimentary roux that we're going to put on the vegetables. So we're going to start off here with our celery, like so many soups. And again, this is all going to get burr mixed later, so we don't have to worry about making them pretty. We just want to make them small enough to cook pretty quickly. Same with our leeks. Now, again, as I've described in the past, we use frozen leeks. We freeze them when they're in season, and then they stay good for a long time. Nice thin slice for our shallots as well. And we're just going to cook all of these together, along with the carrots. And again, we're going to cut that into panels and then into sticks. And then it's super easy just to cut those sticks into nice thin dice as well. So again, they don't have to be perfect. And we're not going for super perfect smooth with this. We're going to burr mix it with our stick blender as we normally do. And we're not going to be running it through a strainer or anything. We're going to just leave the lumps in there. That's fine. Same with our onion. Again, we want that nice fine dice. So we're going to sort of halfway cut through the onion and then cut across, and you get those nice fine pieces. So we're going to get some butter hot in our pot here. And in goes all of our beautiful aromatics. So that's going to go in there just to cook for a little while. So we want to get those nice and toasty. We don't want to get a lot of color on them. We basically just want them to sort of soften and get translucent. Now that may look like a lot of butter. I understand, but what we're doing here is once we get all of our veggies in there, we're going to add the flour and mix it all together. So that's going to start making that roux. The flour is going to cook along with the vegetables in the butter, and that's going to be our thickening agent for later. A little bit of salt in there as well. You always want to use a little bit of salt with vegetables, brings those juices out. Now, we turned out to use maybe not quite enough flour for thickening in this. It came out not quite as thick as we'd hoped, but the cream really helps with that as well. Now, for our cauliflower, what we're going to do here is we're going to cut off all of the florets. Now, you want to cut off any of those really kind of big fibrous chunks off the bottom of the stem, closer to the root. We're not going to be using that part. We are going to be using most of the stem, however. So once you've got all those nice florets off, and we're just going to set those aside. We're not going to add those just yet, but we are going to start cutting up the stems. And we want them to be pretty small. Again, we want them roughly the same size as all the other ingredients in that pot that we've already started sweating down. So again, we're going to get them pretty small. And if you've got big panels like that, again, it's pretty easy just to cut them into sticks and then cut the sticks into dice. So here you can see things have started cooking a little bit has stuck to the bottom there. That's fine. The juice from the vegetables will help lift any of that roux that's sticking to the bottom if you're having any problem with that. You can also add just a tiny dash of water in there, and that'll help as well. So we're going to add in all of the cauliflower stems that we've diced up. We're not going to use the florets until later because we want to sort of maintain their shape. We don't want to burr mix them in with everything else. Another little dash of salt as well as soon as we add more veggies in there. And now we're going to give those a little chance to cook as well. So we're going to stir it up with everything, make sure it's getting warm and a little translucent with everything that's in there. And then we're going to add in some aromatic herbs as well. So we've got a bay leaf in there and some fresh thyme. We're just going to stir that in, and that's just going to sort of perfume the whole dish with a little bit of that beautiful fresh herbiness. So while that is reducing, or while it's cooking and sort of cooking down a little bit, we're going to get our cheese ready. You can use whatever kind of cheese you like for this. Well, I mean, you want to use something that's a good melter. You know, Emmentaler or Swiss sort of cheeses are really sort of ideal for that. And then we're going to cut our bacon. So this is our locally produced hot smoked bacon. It is so delicious. You can see those beautiful streaks of fat in there. So we're going to cut that into slices, and then we're going to cut those slices into sticks, just like we've been doing for everything else. You can also do this with into lardons if you prefer, which is those sort of long sticks. And then we're just going to dice that. And that'll give us a lot of beautiful sort of surface area to render and get a little brown and crispy. So that's going to go into our pan. We do want to let that cook for a little while. We want to let that render, get some color, and crisp up a little bit. Meanwhile, you can see some of our roux has stuck to the bottom of the pan. That's okay. We're just going to scoop that up, scrape it up. We don't want it to cook any further. It's already sort of dark roux in a few places, which makes it a little less thickening. So we want to just stop that cooking here. And we're going to do that by adding in our stock. So the stems, the cauliflower stems, have already cooked some. You can see they're starting to be a little translucent. So we're going to add in our can of stock. We're also going to add in about a half of that, again, of just plain water, just to have enough liquid in there. And that will really help as well. Having all that liquid in there will really help you bring up anything that might be stuck to the bottom. And there we go, adding in that water. So if you find that you're having little bits of the stock or the roux stuck to the bottom of your pan or your pot, that will help. We're going to add just a little dash of vermouth as well for that really nice sort of herbal flavor and aroma to go in there. And then get everything a good stir. We're just going to let that cook together for a little while. And everything's going to just marry together in that pot. So you can see here our bacon has gotten some nice color on it. It has rendered out quite a lot of fat. And we're going to try and retain as much of that fat as we can because we want to use it to cook some things in just a moment. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the bacon out of the pan and put it into a strainer and just let some of that fat drain off. If we're getting a lot of fat in that bowl, we're just going to add it back to the pan. As you can see, we managed to get most of it out before we had to strain it. So it's all in the pan. Make sure any little remaining bits of bacon get added to the strainer. And you can see we've got lots of nice bacon fat in the pan. And what we're going to do now is add in those florets. And we're going to get a nice bit of color on these. So we want to add a little bit of salt to these as well, a little bit of salt and pepper. And we just want to get some color on these. So we're going to cook them until they're nice and some nice crispy edges and that sort of thing. It's going to, when we're assembling the soup later, it's really going to add a lot of flavor and some beautiful texture as well. Now the soup itself, you can see here, it's all coming together. Everything's cooking together nicely in that stock. And it's not super thick yet, but you can see it does have a little bit of thickening to it from that roux. We're going to pull out our whole fresh herbs right now. So out comes the thyme stems as well as the bay leaf. Now we get our bay leaf fresh from our balcony. If you have dried, that's just fine. You just want to give it a little crunch before you add it to your soup. In goes the shredded cheese. And then we're going to put in that stick blender, and that's going to start just burr mixing that whole soup together. So this is where we get the creamy part together. We haven't added the cream yet. That's coming next. So once you've got it pretty close to the texture you want, and you can see some of that froth on top, that's some of the remaining flour just finishing cooking. So we're going to add in our cream at this point. So in goes the heavy cream, and keep that burr mixer going. The stick blender is just going to make sure everything is well combined and all mixed together. And then we're going to add in our beautiful cauliflower florets. You can see them there. They have a little bit of color from that pan. And then we're going to just ladle the soup over top of them. So that's the soup going in over top of those beautiful cauliflower florets that have been just a little bit caramelized in the pan in that bacon fat. Now, of course, if you prefer not to use bacon, you can always use oil for that portion. You don't need the bacon in this. You can replace the butter with oil as well, and that will make this recipe a little bit more vegetarian friendly. Although the bacon does not, and then we add our bacon in on top. And that's it. That's the whole thing. Absolutely delicious. Really quite simple. Just a couple things going on at the same time. And we hope you'll give this one a try. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. We'd also like to thank our patrons. We will put a link to our Patreon in the description below. And remember to love your food.